What's up everybody, Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2018 BMW M5. Huge thanks to BMW for providing us with this all new BMW M5 to review for you guys today.
Also, huge thanks to the Automotive Video Association for arranging this vehicle and 9 other awesome cars and SUVs for the second annual Automotive Video Awards, which brings 7 of the best car reviewers in video and myself together to decide which is the best performance car and performance SUV of the year.
So about the all-new M5, well, it is very, very impressive in a lot of different ways, which I'll get to here very shortly. But first off, the exterior design, is very in line with the previous M5. That's always an evolutionary change with BMW. They don't do anything, radical or wildly different from, previous versions. But I do really like, the added complexity, for example, in these headlamps. I love how it has a stainless steel finish to the top of the headlamps there on that eyelid part. And even the other, textured metal you have there towards the bottom part of the headlight. It's just, there's so much going on in just that BMW adaptive LED headlamp there, and just looks really cool. You have the typical BMW grille with the small little M5 badge, which is always great to see. That's a little bit more subtle, not a huge badge or anything. And otherwise, you have a nice, large, aggressive front air dam there, which looks really cool. And again, fits what this vehicle is supposed to be, of being very fast and a little more aggressive looking, while still also having a little more restraint, I think, than some others. Coming down to the sides here, you have these very cool optional wheels that I personally love. I love the contrast, the black and the bright work it has, and looks really good. Then you have this fender badge that says M5, and it also is an actual functional fender vent here, so that vents air from the wheel wells there and brings it out over the side of the car. And I also love this body line that goes from this vent all the way down the line of the car. I really think that's a cool little design touch there. Going out back, you see a little bit more of a conservative style again. You do have the quad exhaust pipes, and you have the little bit of a rear diffuser there in the lower portion of the rear bumper. But otherwise, the tail lamps and stuff look good. Obviously the same as any other 5 Series. Not quite as interesting as the headlights in my opinion, but you have a nice little lip spoiler that's very small but is there. And again, the M5 is all about being subtle, being a little bit of a sleeper in a way, I think, to those that aren't enthusiasts and whatnot. And so overall, I think it's a pretty good looking vehicle though.
Rest of the interior of the 2018 M5 here. Well, it's a very cool place to be, but I find myself feeling like there's a lot going on. So anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, very sweet seats you have here in the M5. They just look so cool. I love, the huge M5 badges you have there in the headrest. They're even larger than the ones in the grille. It's pretty impressive. But they just are actually very comfortable seats too. Very, very adjustable. I mean, you can adjust the bolstering to make it, wider or tighter depending on your preferences. Of course, you can adjust the lumbar in a bunch of different ways. The top part of the seat back, the bottom part of the seat back, and then also the seat bottom, can be adjusted. I mean, just so many different things. These seats are also heated and cooled. They also have a massage function here in the executive package trim. That's what this one has. That gives you that cooling and the massage, which works pretty well. I actually did test the massage for about an hour on a drive from the airport, and it's pretty good. Most of these massages, they're pretty good in these cars, but they're still not amazing. But I do really like it though. I think it's a pretty well done one, compared to some of the others out there. But overall, fantastic seats. Next to the steering wheel here in the M5, which is also so cool. The main thing that jumps out at me are these M1 and M2 buttons, which are very cool. And that you can set those up to save your favorite presets for, what you want. So like M1 will be just everything in sport mode in this one, the way it's configured. M2 is if you want to put it in rear-wheel drive mode and do all that. But it's just, they look like NOS buttons. Anyone who grew up with the Fast and Furious, having little red buttons in those areas of the steering wheel, it just reminds you of NOS buttons. Kind of a silly, stupid thing, but to me, it makes the steering wheel look even a little more exciting. But it already looks very exciting. I love the M colors you have here in the stitching. You have a little M badge at the bottom here. Just a nice, beefy, huge wheel though. I mean, it's got a great 9-3 grip, but huge 10-2 notches. I love all the stitching around the airbag cover. Just a few buttons here on it. Yeah, overall, it's a really great steering wheel to use. It just looks really cool. You also have these paddle shifters, which are metal, but unfortunately the back is coated in this like plasticky, rubbery kind of feeling. And I get, you know, maybe if the paddles are hot, if it's sitting out in the sun or something, but otherwise that just makes it feel a little cheaper. I'd prefer it to actually feel like metal instead of just looking like metal. Next, there are the gauges here in the M5, which are also very sweet. You know, it's, again, a similar setup to some of the other digital gauge clusters in other BMWs, but I love the more aggressive fonts you have here in the M5. And it's a welcome change from the usual fonts and the usual setup you have in normal BMW gauges. This just looks a little fresher, a little more, you know, cool looking. And, you know, so there's not a whole lot of customization to it. You know, you still have the actual physical metal trim rings, you know, to kind of highlight the traditional areas. So there's not a whole lot of flexibility with that gauge cluster like there is with the brand new screen you see in the 8 Series and the Z4 and stuff, which is just a screen and can, you know, be configured a little bit more. But this still works really great, and you still have the typical, you know, trip information and stuff there in the bottom you can scroll through for fuel economy and stuff like that. And also, you know, there's like a variable tachometer, so, you know, if the engine's colder, then you'll have more of a yellow bar there, which is a throwback to stuff that started, you know, with the E46 M3s and whatnot, and it's really cool to have here. But so overall, I really like these gauges. You also have a very cool heads-up display here in the M5, which in its normal mode, you know, is your average type of heads-up display. It shows you your speed and, you know, a couple other things there. But then you can put it in the M mode, and then that will show you a nice large bar tachometer up there on the windshield for you, which is very cool, and it looks awesome. And actually it shows just how large that heads-up display is and just how high up it can go there. And so overall, really well done job there too. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you know, it's pretty concise at first glance. Right up top, you have the Idrive system, which thankfully, you know, now has touchscreen capability, in addition to still using the Idrive controller, which you can see down here, and still has, you know, your few shortcuts there. So it just comes down to personal preference with that, but I'm just happy they now are giving people the choice of, if you want to use the touchscreen functionality, you have that, you can use it. I still think the menus and stuff are a little more confusing than, you know, some of the best out there. I like the simpler systems like Uconnect Sync 3 and stuff, where you hit audio and then it turns on the radio instead of, you know, having it's just a little more complicated in this. I also wish there was just a tune knob. You have a tune rocker, you have a very nice volume knob, but a tune rocker, I don't know why they couldn't just put another knob there, because it actually looks a little unsymmetrical here, having, you know, 2 knobs on the one side and only 1 on the right. But yeah, I'm nitpicking. Otherwise, you know, the iDrive system is pretty good. I do also love you can get Apple CarPlay now, although they do charge you $300 for it, which seems really silly to me, but at least it's offered there. You know, but otherwise, I mean, the screen's very high resolution. It looks great. I like the split screen functionality, and the navigation maps all look very nice. Everything is very good about it. Like I said, just it's one of those vehicles you definitely have to have a little more time to take to learn it and get used to it. You know, hopping in and test driving one, you'll probably be very confused, but after a while, it seems like most BMW owners really enjoy the system. Coming down though, you have your, like I said, your volume and then the tune rocker there. Volume knob feels pretty good, but could feel a little more expensive. You know, there are a lot of the materials in here look expensive and do feel pretty expensive, but it's still, whenever you actually touch things, a little underwhelming. While I'm mentioning that, like for example, you have this very nice leather stitching here by the transmission tunnel, but then you'd hit it and it's rock hard. There's no padding to it whatsoever, and so it's not very comfortable for resting your knee on, you know, and that's something that even like a, you know, $25,000 Mazda has padding down here that's softer. So I don't know why they would cut corners on a nearly $130,000 M5. You know, it looks very nice. It looks spectacular, but I just wish there was a little bit of actual softness to some of these surfaces. Other things here, you have the auto climate control system, which is really nice how, you know, it now has this little color screen. You know, it looks really good. I really love that. I think it's a really nice change from the usual orange setup that they've had for decades, and so that's you know, really great to see there. And then you also, coming back, you have a few other buttons here to set up, you know, as far as the powertrain goes, the suspension and the steering, which is great. You also have a button for the exhaust to make it a little bit louder there, and, you know, parking cameras and stuff like that. You also have this new M shifter, which is pretty interesting, but again, took a little bit of getting used to it first, because you still have to actually physically, you know, put it to the right, versus in the past, you could just, with all BMWs, just pull them all the way down for drive. This, now you got to go down and to the right. But, you know, once you know that, then it's easy. It's a very cool looking shifter too, and so overall, you know, still pretty concise, and I think once you learn where everything's at and stuff, it's a little more manageable. But at first, when you get in one of these, it's like overload, I think, for a minute. As far as storage space here in the M5, it's pretty good. Not the best for a sedan, but not bad. So first off on the doors, you do have a massive pocket here with a large deep bottle holder in it, which is really, I mean, an excellent job done there. Coming over to the middle here though, you have a wireless charging pad, again in the executive version here, and it's, you know, pretty good size. I think maybe a really large smartphones might be a tight squeeze in there, but you know, it does work. I wish that bin was a little bit deeper or something just to make it a little more usable, because otherwise you just have that, you have your 2 cup holders here with a power outlet there, and that's it as far as open storage. The only other thing you have here is of course in the center armrest, and that is also pretty shallow. You have a USB jack and then another power outlet in there, but again, you can fit, you know, sunglasses and a few other little things in there, but I wish there was something, you know, deeper here, because otherwise, you know, just not a ton of storage space, you know, for a sedan. They're going to be daily driving and stuff, but overall, you know, still should be enough to get you by just fine. By the way, this center armrest does have a little bit of padding to it, but this is another spot where, you know, you're resting your elbow on this constantly. I wish there was some more padding to it. Backseat space in the M5 is pretty good. So, you know, it's not super spacious, but I guess that's what the 7 Series is for. You know, it's still very comfortable though for most people, I think. You know, I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have about 3 inches of legroom to spare, plenty of headroom as well. And so it's a comfortable backseat in that regard. When you look forward, you'll see, you know, air vents and actually their own climate control system back there as well, which is a nice inclusion. There's also a little cubby underneath those vents. And then you'll see 2 traditional power outlets there as well. I don't see any type of USB jacks though. There is a full down center armrest that has cup holders built into it. But otherwise, you know, there isn't any kind of additional hookups, but it is nice to have the 2 power outlets, and you can just as easily, you know, put charging USB ports, you know, in those little adapters. But yeah, overall, still a pretty nice back seat. Trunk space in the M5 is pretty good. Again, the same as any other 5 Series here for this generation. And it's a pretty good sized trunk. Again, I don't think it's best in class, but it's still, you know, pretty good. A little bit narrower, I think, is my conclusion. But still does go pretty far back there. And it's pretty wide right towards the opening there, so it's very easy to, you know, get golf clubs and things like that in, I think. But just, you know, as it gets towards the back, it kind of narrows a little bit. So, you know, fitting really large suitcases, you might not be able to squeeze as many of those back there, but still should be you know, enough space, I think, to, you know, fit 4 people's stuff, as long as it's not, you know, super huge suitcases. All right, so start them go for a drive. The M5 has this very cool key. I like the shape of it, how it kind of comes to a point there. Has the metal buttons on it, very attractive, the M you know, striping there. But of course, it's keyless entry, keyless access, push button start, all that stuff. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and roars to life. All right, so setting off in the 2018 BMW M5. So first thing you notice, well, you have very good visibility. You're sitting up a little bit higher here in the M5, but it's very easy to see out of, you know, A pillars are pretty thin. I also love looking at those side mirrors with the don't connect at the top there. It's kind of cool. View out of the back is also really good here in the M5. Other things though, you know, so we have the suspension in the comfort mode. Everything's in comfort right now, and it's pretty smooth, but it is a little more communicative, which I think is good. You know, it's not quite as plush and luxurious, I think, as the previous M5, at least at very first impression here. It still is very, very comfortable, of course. It's not like it's rough or anything, but I can feel the vibrations of the road a little bit, you know, all the little grooves and stuff a little bit more. You also feel that through the steering wheel. I feel like I'm feeling more through the steering wheel than I usually do with, you know, other BMWs, and so I really like that about it too. Just you feel a little more tuned in to everything the car is doing, which I really appreciate. But I just put everything into the sport mode here, and let's turn down onto the straight road here and see how it does. And make sure we start in first. Here we go. Holy crap! Well, not auto upshift, but man, this thing is a rocket. Impressive. So we have a 600 horsepower 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 engine, 553 pound-feet of torque as well, and man, this thing just hauls. Man, it is like insane. So, and this is it actually blows everyone's minds, because thankfully, since you have this all-wheel drive system, I mean, it is a mind-blowing 0 to 60 time, 2.8 seconds 0 to 60, which is 0.1 seconds slower than a McLaren 720S. That is how insane this is, and it only is 600 horsepower. But you know, to have this much this much go and grunt, and it just shows how that all-wheel drive system really works wonders. But man, oh man, this thing just launched like crazy in that first gear. That wasn't even in launch control. That was just me doing a rolling start at like 5 miles an hour, and it just took off. This thing is insane. So a couple other things here, as far as the numbers, just to show how crazy the numbers are. In addition to that 2.8 seconds 0 to 60, it'll do 0 to 100 miles per hour in only 6.6 seconds, and it'll do a quarter mile time under 11 seconds. It's like 10.9 at I think 129 miles per hour. So I mean, the numbers on this thing are just insane. It's just wild. I mean, it's really impressive how you can now, these, even with the all-wheel drive now, you can do everything with them. It's like a perfect daily driver. You can drive in snow, you can do whatever with it, but then it also can handle taking on supercars and drag racing and stuff like that, and then also still be very comfortable as far as the daily driver and stuff goes as well. So I mean, everything is just so impressive. This thing is just from any RPM, these turbos just kick in, and it is an impressive feeling. Oh man. And also other things here. So the steering is in the sport mode right now. The suspension is in sport mode, and everything feels really nice and pretty tight. Now it's not like the steering isn't super heavy like it sometimes is, in other BMWs. I really like it. It's a little bit lighter. The sport mode also for the suspension, makes it feel a little firm, I guess. We'll try, a few corners here and see, but it also turns in really well for a vehicle that's almost, I think, 4,300 pounds. I think it's like 4,288. It really does a good job with its weight. But yeah, so this also uses the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, and it is really snappy. I mean, obviously it's been beefed up to handle the additional power, but I love the ZF 8-speed. It's so fast all the time. I never am disappointed by these, and regardless of what application they're put in, what company uses them, anyone that uses the ZF 8-speed, I automatically seem to love it. And this one's no different. It is just downshifts immediate. Upshifts are immediate. It is just so impressively responsive in every single way. Man, every single thing about this thing so far is just blowing my mind. It is just crazy. But yeah, so it's about 150 pounds heavier, I think, since they added the all-wheel drive. That's what it cost them about 150 pounds in weight. But this is actually 110 pounds lighter than the previous gen M5. So it is actually lighter than the old one, which is an awesome improvement. And this is also about 300 pounds lighter than an E63S Mercedes, which also does the all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive type thing, and is also very quick and very close competitor to this. But the fact this is 300 pounds lighter, I think you will appreciate that probably if you drive them back to back. Now, I've not driven the E63S yet, so I can't personally say, but I will say that this is really, it feels way lighter, way more stout than I was expecting it to feel, honestly. Especially considering the M550i that I reviewed last year. That was a little softer, and it was very quick, and everything, but it was just a little softer and I was wanting a little more sharpness in every single way. This gives you that little extra sharpness in every single way. We're also now in full automatic mode here, letting it do its downshifts, and oh man, it's impressive. Another thing that's impressive is this has the carbon ceramic brakes, which are an $8,500 option. But this thing, it clamps down. These brakes are impressive. Everything is so impressive, but man, this speed scares me. It's so impressive. Anyway, so this carbon ceramics you want. I mean, they're very expensive. If you want to cut costs, in your spec of your M5, I mean, you could definitely cut them, and I'm sure the regular M5 brakes are very good as well. But these carbon ceramics, I mean, they'll make you lose your lunch if you slam them too hard. I mean, it's just crazy how powerful the brakes are. They feel right up to the task of this insane power plant, though, so they both feel like they go hand in hand very well. And we'll try a quick little launch from a stop here, just for kicks. I love this thing. Oh man, it's amazing. Other things to note here, though, about it. The brakes, like I said, very aggressive, carbon ceramics. And the pedal, though, has, thankfully, a good bit of travel to it before it really starts to get intense and really smacks your face into the steering wheel there. Because, I mean, it is impressive, the amount of braking force. In this Sport Plus mode, too, it loves hanging on to those higher, the lower gears and giving you those higher RPMs, too, which is very cool. But throttle response is basically immediate. I'm not feeling any turbo lag either with this motor. I mean, it's still a big, 4.4 liter, relatively big V8 engine. And so you immediately have punch. Man, the power is addictive though. I can't get over it. It's just making me just go gaga every time I stop on the gas. It's insane. It's just like unrelenting power. There's no drop off. There's no like, oh, okay, we have some power and then we chill for a second and then have power again. It's just an unending surge of just power, and just constantly keeps pulling. It is insane, this thing. It's no wonder they needed the all-wheel drive to put down all this power, because you need it. That is one cool thing, though. You do have the, if you want to go to the two-wheel drive mode, unfortunately, that means you also have to get rid of stability control. So it's like on your own, like, okay, you want to drift, and that's it. But it's very cool they give you that option. If you want to, be Chris Harris and slide around every corner, you can do that if you have the skill. But honestly, I love the all-wheel drive in this. I think it's a great addition. With the amount of power we're getting to here in these sedans, you need it. I mean, it is definitely, I think, a great inclusion. And I still love how light this steering is. It is so light, but so accurate, and just, feels very engaging. And I love it. It just goes to show you don't need to have super heavy steering to have good steering. You don't have to make it unnecessarily heavy just for the sake of, making it feel sporty. It can still feel very sharp and accurate even without the weight. And, this thing is very impressive. In case I didn't say that 25 times already. All right, we got a little more of an open stretch of road here now. So let's stop on it again. This thing. I can't imagine how gratifying it would be to go full throttle in this thing on an unrestricted part of the Autobahn and just let it fly. Whew, it would be amazing. But even whenever you're trying to keep it, at reasonable speeds here, it is still just an absolute blast, though. It handles, like I said, so much better than I was expecting. This is definitely, I think, my favorite M that I've driven since the M2. I definitely like this better than, like the X6M. The ride was really rough in that. And the power was fast, but it wasn't nearly as impressive as this. The M3s, the M4s, all those are, cool. But they have wheel spin galore, so you don't get as much of that visceral acceleration feeling like you get in this. This is the one. This is the M to get. Man, this is really, if you can afford one of these things, then it's definitely worth getting. But now, as we calm down and just kind of chill on a main, highway here, the roads are a little bit rougher here, not quite as well maintained as a regular highway would be. But it's a really great highway cruiser here too, and just great. And, like I said, you have the massage seats, so you put that on. You have the Bowers and Wilkins stereo, which does sound very good. Wasn't mind-blowing to me, but was very good. It's just up to you whether that's worth the $3,400 upcharge for the stereo or not. But it's still, it's such a nice cruiser in that regard. But I mentioned if you can afford one of these, it's definitely worth getting. But the price is definitely something that has gone up, I think, since last year, the previous gen version. So these started around $102,000. This one, as tested, though, is just under $130,000, like $129,875, I believe. So for that price, it gives you some of the options. Of course, with BMWs, there's options lists that are miles long. This one has the executive package, which is $4,000, gives you the cooled and massage seats, the wireless phone charging, the rear sunshade, and several other things. Then it also has the carbon ceramics, which are $8,500. It has an M driver's package, which it didn't detail on the window sticker what that actually includes, but that's like $2,500, and several other little options as well. So that's how you get to that $130,000 number. If money's no object, definitely get the ceramics. I think they're definitely great. But if you're not going to be pounding this thing on a back road constantly, I'm sure the M brakes are just fine, the regular steel ones, and that saves you $8,500, which is a pretty good chunk of change for just about anybody. So, just something worth considering there. But I do love how, there's modes for everything. You want all-wheel drive, you want rear-wheel drive, you want a loud exhaust, you want a quiet exhaust. Do you want all the aggressive stuff or not? I mean, you can configure this vehicle in so many different ways to, exactly get it to what you want it to do. But yeah, so overall, I don't think there's any way I could be more impressed with the M5. Like, every single thing about it I love. Like, there's nothing that I can complain about as far as the driving goes. Like I said, some of the interior stuff and everything, I would maybe change a little bit. But other than that, I absolutely love this thing. So huge thanks to BMW for providing us with this M5 to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the all-new M5 here in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.
What type of half-baked YouTube channel doesn't have a soft toy gorilla in it?